Hi, good evening, welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Kyle Dukuyan, and I'm Executive Director of the Poetry Project. Even though we are getting started, there is food and drink behind the seating, and you should feel free to avail yourselves of food and drink during the reading. I want to thank all of you for being here. We've kind of slowly and cautiously and with a lot of thought returned to gathering in person. And the ability to gather in person, is something that comes out of all of the collective regard for care. And so I really, truly appreciate you making this space together. And I want to thank also Nightboat for the publication of this incredible and important book that we're celebrating tonight. I want to thank all of our readers and performers, Simone White, Sawako Nakayasu, Charles Bernstein and Marty Ehrlich, and Tonya M. Foster, who will be with us in audio spirit. And of course, thank you most especially to Erica Hunt. Restrooms, I just want to let folks know some logistical stuff. Restrooms are through this door and upstairs. We do have some capacity limits on how many people can be in the building at one time. So a Poetry Project attendant will be at the door to help us monitor building access and to direct anyone who may need to use a ground floor accessible restroom. I mentioned that food and drink are behind you. Books are also for sale to my right, so I hope that if you don't already have this book, or if you know someone who doesn't already have this book, I hope that we sell out of this book tonight. And last, before moving more deeply into this event, we just wish to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded indigenous land of the Lenni Lenape people, and we wish to acknowledge the complex and at times oppressive history of this particular site, the oldest site of continuous institutional religious worship on the island of Manhattan. We are committed to the self-critical work of poetry and gathering as we move toward ongoing accountability, equity, and repair, and we thank you for joining us and for your openness to this work. And I'm going to move into introducing us. I've returned many times during the course of the pandemic to a piece Erica Hunt published, I think it was in May of 1990, for the Poetry Project papers. She's taking up the question or the possibility or the imperative of poetry for the next society. In the utopian sense, she writes, poetry as transformation, as activity between reader and writer and audience and performer. She takes up this frame and writes that it proposed contiguous projects of deeply considered difference and congruence. It proposed cultures in which we have multiple memberships, and those memberships permit us to be both subjects and objects of our own history, text, and situations. I think part of what has distinguished Hunt's poetry and what makes this celebration of her life work so important is this ecstatic apperception of time and transformation, a sensitivity always to what is passing, approaching, what inscriptions are happening as consequence or means. Language happens in time. Time as we feel it or remember it happens at least in part in language. And these fabrics come together with a kind of quantum force in Hunt's hands. History and future subject differently to the care and pressure with which she regards speech. Her poems delight in lexical pivots and fulcrums, points of indeterminacy and exhilaration, as much as they call attention to the hauntings of our words and grammar. Etymologically, she traces exchanges of power, sites of collectivity, the serious and precious work of kinship, and all of this at the word level, and all of this with a consciousness of the choices words bear and the social forces which surround those choices. I come up from her poems and my sense of the civic and my sense of self are changed. I think all of us have been recomposed relationally and, of course, in different ways by her work. From verse. Light is composed by experience. Without correction, it stands still and is almost invisible, collecting dust. Without it, we tend to see lumps and not the landscape the voices of people fall out of. The light in the brain is you. The address of her poems reveal Hunt's devotion to community, to the social and society, this recognition that we are all within the context of one another. But there is also some radiant library of the private subject in here, one who makes from many a light and a means of vision. Erica Hunt is a poet and essayist. She's the author of Jump the Clock, New and Selected Poems published by Night Boat Books, and 5 collections of poetry, Local History, Arcade, Peace Logic, Time Flies Right Before the Eyes, and Veronica, a Suite in X Parts. Her poems and nonfiction have appeared in Bomb, Boundary 2, Brooklyn Rail, Conjunctions, the Los Angeles Review of Books, Poetics Journal, Tripwire, Fence, Hambone, and In the American Tree, among other publications. Essays on poetics, feminism, and politics have been collected in Moving Borders, 3 Decades of Innovative Writing by Women, A-Line, and the Politics of Poetic Form, The World, and other anthologies. With poet and scholar Don Lundy Martin, Hunt is co-editor of the anthology Letters to the Future, Black Women, Radical Writing, in 2018 from Corre Press. She has received awards from the Foundation for Contemporary Arts, the Fund for Poetry, the Blue Mountain Center, and the Gerasi Foundation, and is a past fellow of Duke University, the University of Cape Town Program in Public Policy. Currently, she is the Bonderman Visiting Professor of Practice in the Literary Arts Department at Brown University. It's such an honor to be celebrating this work tonight. I'm so appreciative to all of you and to all of the readers, and our first reading tonight is going to be from Simone White.
Hi, we're outside. It's so strange and wonderful to be here and in the churchyard and to hear, I sort of forgot how the Poetry Project's introductions work, but that was a really beautiful and illuminating introduction. Thank you, Kyle. I guess like the only thing I really want to say before I start to read some of Erica's work is that I'm often confused about how I got here. It is always unclear how I find myself in the situation of being able to do this job. And the Poetry Project is one of the reasons I'm able to do this job. And Erica is an important other reason that I am able to do this job. And I hope that she knows how very grateful I am for her and for her love and example. This is a coronary artist. I dream excess, high-speed vision, snow falling upwards. The bed in a corner of the empty lot. Cut logs careening away from the saw. They know what's waiting for them. A line of introductions. An incomplete arc of contemplation. A family of clothes beg to be picked up. Chimneys at work carry steam. Ingest coffee. Loosen stuck bits of flux loved for their silence. All the great heroes slept late. The common folks get up early and fight for the victory. It takes a lifetime to be steered in this direction. Snow is mounting from the sky down. I think the dirty clothes are crying and want to be washed. Piles of clothes begin to mount from the sky down. I would say no, except for the empty chair, where taking off is perfected. The left brain turns the other cheek. The right brain can't imagine it. to be bringing one's face into morning when it's barely light, to promote sunshine to my daughter while surviving my own ferocious will to sleep. This is the comer to tum to the bathroom. This is the sink. I look at myself in the mirror and see the person I might have been had I gotten more sleep. I step back into the world. It's warmer and moister than I thought. It's a whole world with its own affections, anxieties. Welcome. Custom has it that a woman gets up first to solve the dilemma of the burning moment. You can smell the smoke answering the alarm. And then you can't smell anything over the family soundtrack, putting everything on hold. One becomes an adult without knowing the details of how it was done, knowing only which team you're on, which hat corresponds to your glands. Already, this is an extinct culture, a culture of giants prone to the vertigo of silent agreements and unenforceable contracts. The rocks in our beds belong to them. Their sexual politics get the better of us sometimes, and we are left with dream transcriptions and delinquencies instead of passion outside the parentheses. We make it to the crossroads only to come to a stop. The idea we harbor is subversive, that there may be many moments in which we recognize the sources of our hunger, falling out of the sky, a complete thought sung to our most visible selves. This is, I guess it's called freedom. Freedom ignites in me plenitude that scents rain. Sense the sky is full of surprising music. Timpani, trumpet, a blue tent torn that orders cogent, cumulative event in which no false intonation claims itself king over all. Every last woman, man, and child proof the rain falls, never to be worn out. Freedom is the breaking point beyond rage. I'm not scared, and I don't care where the dream undertakers have warned me not to take too much, not to love too much, not to look too closely at the past. What could there be left to break? Nothing left to be broken, nothing left to be taken. I'm just going to read two sections of this poem called Open Letter that I've been sort of gradually building. Open Letter. This is for all y'all who say, this form of address cannot even reach me. If Simone were able to reach me using this form of address, it would be because it was allowed, which it is not. There is no known form of address for this thing you think you are doing with respect to me. Take your breath in. You find yourself lost, stopped. In you, the spirit of vengeance stops itself. Ninth circle, you sweep your arms above your head, altering the current, but the currents know you not. Foreigner to the current belongs to the god of habitual funk, a tournament god who wears the silver bangles stolen from you when you were 19 upon those of inferior intelligence and superior guile. Whereas the cradle of address, going out, coming in, où il est possible de rencontrer, and what have you, every intention crests, awaiting the widget proper to her vagina. Isn't this right? Ain't I correct? Hanging around or so-called haunting the area in which meeting would theoretically be possible, baby. What kindness is among us, not the form of address of interest to y'all, is for spread, the language practice associated with gossip. Taking two fingers, touch them to the head, go down, a 40-degree angle, not in greeting, in measurement of the space between me and the interface, measuring the prospect. Its completeness is so small. One who works, such as myself, speaking to one who works also to the estrangement of our labor. On that repetitive note, it is not only y'all. One lives in a kind of perpetual eruption of fractal jokes regarding breaks and shuffle and breakdowns. That was one of the jokes, but it's not even about what you believe it to be. The great love and theft is unparalleled, so that perhaps a certain kind of critique was thereafter unavailable. What they say, corrective. They can't hold me to that. What is funny to me is, in fact, y'all think I should be sad. What is your aesthetics? See, now we're about to have confusion because of changing address. The dance people have had it right for some time. The two-step questions are not a digression, but a discourse on hilarity. No, I am definitely not talking to you.
Thank you so much, Simone. And the next reading is going to be from Sawako Nakayasu.
Hello. I guess you can hear me. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here together today. It feels amazing to be in person. I don't know what more to say, but thank you so much to the Poetry Project, and thank you to Erica for inviting me. Thanks to the Poetry Project for organizing everything, including bringing me here. And to the readers I'm reading with, I'm super honored to be among you, Simone and Charles and Tonya and Erica, of course. I'm going to say, I will just start with a brief poem of my own, and then I want to just enjoy being in Erica's amazing, wonderful book together with you. I'm going to read one poem from a book that I published called Some Girls Walk into the Country They Are From, about my re-entry into this country in 2017. And I thought that was a big deal, but then 2020 happened, and here we are. This poem is called Laid Out Along the Road Like Attenuant Parts. Is the residue we bandolier warned you about. Watch out for assurgent matters, like when the sun scrabble hits the road hard and you find yourself undappled, unready to escape being hit by the sharpness of your own refractions. Venesection. Hold your sanguijuelas. Each girl is a vehicle, house, or anti-occupant. Leach into louse, into decision fatigues. When the sunlight is not hitting the road, it is possible to visit or reimagine what used to be the girl, the ruse, or the fullness of enclosure. By the time someone kindly asks you to go invisible, you may have already merged with the residue. Whether you find this appropriate or not, desirable or not, incommensurable or not, don't you say it, spark say you, we didn't warn you. And now I'm going to read 3 poems from Erica's book, working backwards in time. So the first piece I selected is from Veronica, a suite in 10 parts. This poem is called Context is All. This me, not that me, that them, no, the other them, that we, or this we, all we, both of them, and all of we. When there, not here, but me then, before then, and before we, when we, how we, when we spoke then, never spoke back to them then. Silent, we, resilient, we, existed, as an existential us, observing with restraint and bemusement, terror, a noisy them, childish them, and if we overspoke, we spoke using our bodies to them, head tilted or hand back at them, or facing them with all our backs, never breaking face, so masked to all senses of them, all tenses of we, over-prepared. We had better. We had better be better than them. We had better be better beginning and end, early and fitful. We had better be better beginning and in the middle, too. Be better between life and death, better in the visible, and sure better than them in the places they overlooked, than them and their soundtrack. We had better be better than them who draft and redraft themselves. Quote, what destroyed me created them, end quote, or so we thought, mistaking the well-off for well-being, enough to be them, so some of us thought and thought better of. We had better be better being draft selves than them, even if it meant drowning in virtuous poison. I have to say I had a really hard time choosing because there were so many poems I wanted to read to you. But I did make some selections. Invisible hands. This is from Peace Logic. Invisible hands. Trade down the block or round the world, down the food chain from forward to back to escape the air-grabbing heat, the crop failing, the monsoon in June, a fluke of the weather, a storm of flowers whipped into a rain that claims the last village. Residents head out to the city to make money. They never make the money they seek. Instead, they make keychains, sneakers, baseball gloves, flame-proof nightwear, transmissions, stereos, computer chips, Gap jeans, rugby polo shirts, dolls with the features of Norteamericanos or slave girls or Indian princesses living their lives in legend unlike their own, except for an unlocatable middle. Just in time, the chain continues unbroken to unwind the thing after the thing, a line of never broken nouns. If it breaks, we fix it quick so the chain can never be broken, even if it shouts out, a chorus set to shovel. The rocks never seem to disappear, but become dust, a dust that lasts from morning to morning, chained to a logic we are doomed to follow. Invisible hands rice the peas, spice the rice, circle the terms, turn on the presses, raise the letters, letter the spaces, address the edges before they bang into one another, mask the connections. Invisible hands milk the spill, ship the ink, jump the rope, rip the chute, lay the trail, time the tear, eye the glass, bat the wing, bat the lash, brown the tan, fiddle the sticks, ride the herd, read the horde, hear the roar, read the dim, damp the rhyme, rhyme the orange, toast the storage. Carry the thread, thread the vowels, stall the calls, pour the molds, powder the walls, dent the bins, stamp the bills. Core the questions, comma the nouns, time the charts, corner the squares, square the curves, loosen the jaws, spill the beans, bell the cats, feed the beasts. It's years before a family will follow off the edge of the ramp into this putative new life, where the past has vanished and the present is all time charts, marked invisibly. Only visibly hot in a red dark of selective vision, in plain sight and out of sight, one hand trying to clap the other. Do I compete with church bells? We'll jam together. As in the phrase, give me some skin, the slap of palms, right hand to right hand, empty. No weapon here. We come in peace. We come out of the hypnotic circle that orbits and holds us in constant bind of stick-em-up and lap dancing, out of rigged destiny, across the violent border of property and oblivion, until hands can be detected in the bric-a-brac of the world. And one last piece. I know, I love that poem. And it's such a great pleasure to be giving a reading of someone else's poems, or of Erica Hunt's poems in particular. The last thing I'm going to read is the last piece in a serial poem called Correspondence Theory, which is in local history. Dear, dear, you mean feelings. Did you know that in English there are more words referring to external objects than there are words to refer to internal states? Faces convey immediate meaning, while words take their time to reach you. 80 or so muscles in our skin slack or tense in a kinetic vocabulary that could go on without a comma. In the fiction of your letters, how do you punctuate your body English? How do you wear the stamp of things seen? A man I know has a stare that means business. He has two kinds of stares, actually, business and pleasure. Most people trapped in his gaze try to fight back. They either break its hold by laying flat and still against whatever background is handy, so that voila, they are part of the picture, or they try to divert his attention. But few try to return his view blow for blow. Words are just paper clips in this kind of encounter, holding the place in a book to let you know where you're at. The stare demands a story, and the story demands boundaries. You stay inside a landscape of it. You, a body, hold up your end of the conversation. You, a tree, locked inside the body of a tree. We were just talking about being trees and mother trees. Finally, you stick out your neck. The perfect proof of desire is risk. The perfect proof of desire is risk. A star is only an example. Stare long enough, and the star blinks. Desire teaches thought to think out loud. Original looks bolt from the eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sawako. And the next readings and performance that's going to come jointly from Charles Bernstein with Marty Ehrlich.
I don't know what. Hello, can you hear me? I don't know why they keep changing the microphone. Seems the same thing, but each person get. Oh, it's clean. It's a swab. It's a COVID thing. Okay. Well, it's great to be here live, and for those of you who have been subjected to video readings all this time, hearing Sawako and Simone live, unbelievable. It's just a completely different experience. Plus, if I go like this, I don't go out of the frame. You see, you can still follow me.
Everybody wants to be Mick Jagger.
I just cannot stand video. And what a better place or person to break that video frame than Erica Hunt. Erica Hunt, I met in around 1980. She was just a child. And You know, I wouldn't normally say this, but with Erica, I must. There's a kind of a sense of family to me with her children. Madeline and Julius, Julius Hemphill, my dyslexia there. Julianne, who is right there. And I suppose Julius Hemphill too, because I'm thinking that's the next point I'm going to make. And it's been so much a part of my life in poetry. And also this place, this kind of extreme as it may sound, for somebody who is not only not religious but anti-religious, sacred ground for poetry, St. Mark's Poetry Project, and the people who were here when I came in the mid-'70s, some of whom are here now. Ann Waldman, John Godfrey, James Sherry, who published Erica's first book. You know, this has been, and mentioning those people who are here, but so many other people who are not here because they're dead or elsewhere. And they're here too, though. They are here. They're always here. And I think of them when I am here. And I'm so happy to be back reading live and in person for Erica. And then I want to just say about Erica Hunt that her presence in New York over these 40 years has been fundamental to me as a poet and a thinker and as a professor. Her poetry in this book and the other books, and also her essays and poetics. But I want to especially say something that we don't have a record of, her talks. Not only her talks to each of us individually, but in public. And her ability to speak in such a powerful way about what's so significant, about innovation, about the necessity of invention, and also a social commitment, and also her life committed as a social person outside of poetry, the 20th Century Foundation, and otherwise now working toward teaching, has been so crucial for anybody interested in 21st century American poetry. So for me, this is an occasion to thank you, Erica, for all that you have done, for me and for all of us, and also for American poetry and beyond that. So when I was asked to do this, I thought, wow, I mean, Sawako and Simone, why is it both S's? I'm going to confuse those names too, two S names, did such beautiful versions and performances of your work. But I thought, wow, you know, how can I read when Erica's going to read? It's she's too good. I'm good. It's just as good as I could be. It's not going to be as good. So I had an idea, and I think it's a very good idea. And I wrote to Marty Ehrlich, and I said, would you perform with me? And he said, yes. So we have the pleasure of Marty, who will also perform with Erica, but starting with me. And it's going to just, regardless, if I just go boom, 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 it's going to be great, because I'm playing with Marty Ehrlich, who, along with Erica, has been such a crucial force within New York arts and music. And I'm going to say this because I know Marty a long time, and I never get to say it in public. One of the greatest American musicians that I know over this time. I mean, such an incredible performer. And then this Julius, not Julian, sorry, Hemphill box set, this tribute to this incredible musician who was almost like a poet in the sense of the marginalization of his work and the fact that it hadn't been collected, hadn't been produced by Gulf and Western, Time, Warner, HBO Max, and on his own collected those recordings and put them out. And that's great. So Erica said, would I read a poem of my own? So that was it. That was my poem. And I just want to read your poem and make it mine. And that's what I'm going to try to do. So I thought the two of us, it's a kind of a sop, sentimental gesture. I'm going to read Erica's poem, Fool for Love, accompanied by, or I am accompanying, Marty Ehrlich on the saxophone. Saxophone! Saxophone! I cannot claim rigor or music, blindfolded or hormone-heated hunger. I cannot claim ache, my bulb dimmed or exhausted. The binary phantom has stopped breathing. Calamity is my direction. I cannot claim mistaken destiny or a hold in the cards of singularity. A dull solitaire never wins or loses. I cannot claim habit, haunts, an empty chair, or drives me to disestablished echo. I cannot claim arousal by flame, sputter, fire drowned in crackle. I cannot claim amnesia, that abandoned plastic bag bursting testimonies by the curb, discarded with damp coffee rinds. I cannot claim perfect enthusiasm. I grit my risk against high drama, yet flowers appear eye to eye. I cannot claim my grain is porous and thunder ready to soak in less heaven and more earth, a tone of mud. I cannot claim my double won't appear when I least expect her, throwing a tantrum and galoshes, following her thumbprints. She blows things out of proportion. And she doesn't always use her name. I cannot claim rigor, cannot claim ache, cannot claim mistaken destiny. I cannot claim habit. I cannot claim arousal. Cannot claim amnesia. Cannot claim perfect enthusiasm. I cannot claim my grain is porous. Cannot claim my double won't appear. Cannot claim music, hormone heated, hunger, exhausted, the binary phantom, calamity, singularity, haunts, an empty chair, echo, crackle. I grit my risk, eye to eye. My grain is porous. Tone of mud, tantrum and galoshes, tantrum and galoshes, tantrum and galoshes. She blows. Blows out of proportion. And she doesn't always use her name. Her name. Her name.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Marty. Our last contribution before we hear from Erica is coming from Tonya M. Foster, who's not with us in person, but is very much with us in spirit and psyche and energy. So a reading from Tonya M. Foster.
Dear Erica, congratulations to you on the publication of Jump the Clock. It's a phenomenal work. It gives testimony of your deep engagement with the possibilities of language over time. It's amazing. I wish that I could be there to celebrate with you today. But I do have to say I'm looking forward to when we can get together soon. You know, one dear poet friend pointed out that poetry requires more than survival, and yet survival is more important than poetry. And I've been thinking about that lately, thinking about the possible relations between poetry and survival that this friend's observation occasions. In order to write poetry, the poet must survive another deadening day. The poem must survive the poet and perhaps the editor and the times. And yet poetry is a reflection, deflection, reorientation, experience beyond the survivalist impulse of canned beans. Engaging uncanny themes, speaking in tongues sparked by remarkable testing and teasing of forms and grammar meant to regulate and restrict. This has been your work, Erica, in the world and in language. To work for survival, your social justice work and nonprofit work, and the possible and sometimes impossible beyonds. Luminous form-testing poetry. Jump the Clock is a significant collection. The poetry in the collection is, among other things, the study of being present and of being's presence across time. Erica, your poetry is lit through by the power of thought's potential, through language to tear open new possibilities of experience, to suggest and, give us ways to practice. Your work keeps non-standard time and calls standard forms and time into question. This is poetry's power. We need this poetry at this moment. Serious and illuminating language play animate decades of brilliant work that rends and renders singular and communal selves. You've written poetry that is, to use your own phrase, an exclamation that should be felt all over the planet. I'd like to read one of my favorite poems from local history, The Order of the Story. 2. She opens the door. He is standing there with such complete attention, she turns to see who could be standing in the door just over her shoulder. She doesn't know whether to smile, whether this will send the wrong message. She smiles at him. She wants to close the door. She opens the door. She comes to the doorway. She is nothing like he thought she would be, shy in her own house. Her head is to one side, uncombed, unruly spirals, but otherwise dressed and ready. He wants to say something to her. He wants to ask her whose side she is on in the total war, the one without a name. Which side protects her in the exchange of bullets? Friendly or indiscriminate, the echo carves air around him. The fire's trapped in scar-stretched skin. The hole gunfire left is large enough to fill a room with grief. The door is locked behind him. Time 4, all of a sudden shortened. He wants back into this. Restful periods of reasonable expectation, events with commas, the supple ease of free association. He wants out of the line of fire. He wants back into the ground taken from him in a chain of mistaken events. A thief mistakes him for a thief, or a neighbor mistakes him for a housebreaker. A cop with the power of gun mistakes him for a perp out of line. He wants out of the extreme. Clearly, he wants to say something to her. She watches him, the traffic of emotion on his face becoming light or extinct, one after the other. She opens the door wider, as if to say, "Come in." He watches her face fall into focus. The balloons float out of the frame of the doorway, carrying her lines, her walk-on scene stage instructions. He watches this, knowing there is more than one scenario, more than one way to connect the dots, more than one ending. He closes his eyes to imagine it frankly, unretouched, an image of safety, his own body flat, moving along the camouflage of trees. And I'd like to read a poem of mine that I think is one of your favorites of mine, New Orleans Bibliography. New Orleans Bibliography. In language and landscape, inscape. In language, in landscape, inscape. In only after taking in my mother landscape, along with the voices of that place. A girl who looks like her father is born for luck. Alcohol, Algiers, alligator, amazing grace, Amelia, Angola, Atchafalaya, Aunt Noni, Aunt Sister, Azarine, back a town, Bayou, because her daddy died or left, because the firstborn baby died, Beignets, bitch, Bootsy, Cafe au Lait, Calliope, Projects, Canal Street, Cardella, Cast Iron, Catching Coconuts, Catching Sense, Cayenne, Clio, Clio Street, Cockroaches, Comb Them Kitchens, Congo Square, Cornbread, Courtyard, Cousins, CPT, Crawfish, Creole, Dark, Darker, Dark-Skinned Daughters, Dead End, Desire, Desire Projects, Desire Unmet is Desire Multiplied, Dirty Rice, Dorothy, Elysian Fields, Erato, Etouffee, Euterpe, Ezekiel, Father John's, Filet, Firstborn done died, Fleur de Lis, Flood for True, Front Porch, Galvez, Girt Town, Gimme some, girl, gimme got shot, get up in here, God don't like ugly, good hair, grandma, grandpa done lost his mind, grief grown rooted and wild, grief like dirt, hard-headed, hard-hearted, her mouth don't know no Sunday, high yellow, Holy Ghost, hoodoo, how sweet the sound, how y'all doing, how your mom and them, I ain't playing with you, no. Jacks, jambalaya, jazz, jump back, jump rope, Katie, kick back, kick your ass, kitchens on your neck, knickknacks, Kool-Aid, lanyap, lakefront, levee, left, levy, leveraging, light-skinned, lighter than a paper bag, Louis, St. Louis, Louis the 14th, my belle, my dear, magnolias, make groceries, Martin Luther King Boulevard, Melpomene Projects, memory, mourning, mosquitoes, mourning, mud bugs, muffalata, nappy-headed, neckbone, nutri-rats. Nobody likes a bone but a dog. NOPD, not luck enough to keep a body strong. Okra gumbo, out front of town. Oysters, pecans, pickled pig's lips, pispo, po' boys, porch monkeys, potholes, quadroons, quarter, quiet. Rain, rain, rain through the living room windows. Red beans, red bone, Reverend Prophet. Rice, river, 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 rue, saints, sedity, sassafras, sachimo, screen doors, semen, seventh ward, snowballs. Speak the word to me. Spit on the broom to stay out of jail. St. Charles Avenue, Stronger Hope Baptist Church, Superdome, Swamp, Tambourine, Chapatulas, Tender-headed, Tender-hearted, Tenderoni, Terpesqua, Thought. Throw me something, mister. Tipatinas, trouble don't last always. Uppity, vagina, Virginia, voodoo, wade in the water. Water, wishes. Wishes go the way of sweepstakes. Where you at? Where you from? Woman, wrought iron. Your ma, your pa, your greasy grandma. You ain't nothing. You thought like Aunt Hannah who thought cat shit was banana. Xavier, Zataran, Zulu, Zydeco, Amen. Was speech possible? Only after taking in my mother landscape was speech possible. Love you, my friend. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, Tonya. And it was beautiful to watch everyone listening. And now, please join me in giving your most loving and enthusiastic and ardent welcome to Erica Hunt.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Oh, thank you. I mean, I've got a lot of thank yous too. I had to write them down. I start with a succession of thanks ordered by an adrenaline and sun-soaked mind. Thanks first to this evening's readers, Simone White, Sawako Nakayasu, Tonya Foster, and Charles Bernstein. This book launch has had stellar godparents, second cousins, uncles, aunts, assorted strange people who wandered in through dinner time. It's been wonderful. Thank you. And thank you also to the staff of the Poetry Project. Wow. Thank you, Kyle, Andrea, Laura, and others for being such great, and Matt, for being such gracious hosts, circling this date 6 months ago for May 19th, a date when this is the day we broke the tape on the cordon sanitaire. Right? And we poets can literally face each other again. Thanks also to Stephen Modica, Kaylin Nardone, Jay Elizabeth, Katie Lederer, Lindsay Bolt at Nightboat. Yeah, who shepherded Jump the Clock in a year that scrambled time, being both the longest year, the densest year, the most collapsed star of a year ever. I am glad to be part of the Nightboat list, which is eclectic and excitingly unpredictable in a way that few presses can match. Thank you for Nightboat. Subscribe. I'm grateful for the company of, I'm just going to keep doing this. It's like the Oscars. I get to do this, okay? I am grateful for the company of many writers, either in person or through their books. Adam Fitzgerald, John Keane, Saidiya Hartman, Tonya Foster, Charles Bernstein, Adjoa Graves, Julie Patton, Ann Waldman, Dawn Lundy Martin, and many others, building a house no one has ever seen the likes of before. Our house bursts. It bursts with the living and the dead and their writing. For the last few years, I have circled around the idea of Ubuntu. I am because we are. And the relational. And the dance between the individual and the community she inhabits, and the relationship between works of art and the conversations that become possible in reception. Reader and writer response, how what is written is amplified or echoed or becomes seeds or branches. Right? It has been my good fortune that I have grown as a writer and reader with the people I mentioned or left out, but they nevertheless are in my head and heart. So, and at the center has always been a constant spring. Big love, my family of immediate relations, my chosen family, and you guys all know who you are, chosen family. Y'all keep me grounded. Marty, Julian, Madeline, John, and Ivy. In their care, I grow bolder and go further. So, okay. Do I want what? No, I think I can see. Thank you. Let's see, what am I going to start with? I'm not going to read super long because we've been listening to a lot and wonderful readings. So, I have a short list here. No. That piece that Tonya read is about, actually, it's based on a true story of somebody who we met at a party and then, like 4 days later, showed up at our doorstep because he had been shot by the police and then released from the hospital, and he had nowhere to stay. And so he stayed at our house for, convalesced for 3 weeks. This is way back, San Francisco. We didn't know him, but he had no place to stay, and he had been shot by the police, a black man. That's my first experience with that. An open door. There are events that I forget that I don't remember forgetting that make me uneasy. I so easily surrender them, jammed in a passageway of unacknowledged storage. Together we pick up dreams, pieces of dreams. We pick up the pieces dreams anticipate through texture, emblems tied together by oblique chains of recall. We work backwards, inventing continuity on the drive to see something stunning, something to vary our hunger, something to sustain the stranger within ourselves with indelible landmarks. He forgets too. We forget to allow for what we have forgotten. I resist maps. He knows the way there if we don't get lost. We miss a turn because we haven't compensated for the shift of ground when our joint shadows don't yet merge. We read into the same little girl, our daughter, whose temperament is just emerging, who might be based on something we have forgotten, out of focus in our future. All the mythologies have this in common, the transformations. A tree that was once a lovely woman, a stream that echoes laughter, that fluttering foliage marking the track on which a woman must run to own herself, points to a satisfaction out of view. I tend to forget the slopes where thinking trails off. I forget sleeping as a means to connect succeeding versions of the same character. I forget reprieves, the materials of a second wind. I forget the water where it widens to meet the ocean, the level parishes of potato fields reaching to the sky. I forget who it was in a dream that became a cross between Walter Houston and Leo Tolstoy to remind me that rage and affection form the spine of human scale. There is pleasure in observing memory select and recover, reconnect separate waves curling, connecting end to end. when memory reappears, having unaccountably lived a deathless and reckless life on its own, it obliterates my forecast of grimy blankness, opening a door to where I live now, speaks through the voice of someone who casually mentions the burrito I ate in the car years ago. Don't you remember? Somewhere we were going, someplace stunning. I can't relive it. The sting of the jalapeno, the avocado spilled in my lap, the taste, the relief of getting out of the car to look at the canyon as it fell away into the ocean, the feeling I'll never forget. We all sit down at the ground level from time to time to see what my daughter sees. She sees a lot more flora than we ever notice. While we are balancing response and responsibility, she is studying the way we cross our feet at the ankles, the worn path in the carpet, the way the wood planks heave and pitch. She likes to play with specks and gobs, testing a world of rudimentary number. All of her blocks, rattles, trains, turtles, beads, bears, picture books, and balls have separate measure, distinct volumes. I imagine that for her, poetry is oral color and objects sounds. Tunes envelop her in a thicket of beats. She leans into rhythms and rolls out iambs in babbled sleep. Every newly accomplished word arises from a language she'll forget. I'm writing this while craning over the years that divide, a memory of thinking what it would be like to be measuring this distance between as it happened and the mutable table of now. I am drinking a beer, listening to the clink of glass and sand. I am following a barely discernible route to a beach of black pebbles, a shore color new to me, and as I write it, life lifting again, an imperfect reflection. Dropping everything. Let's see. I'm going to read for less than 10 minutes, I promise, okay? Because then we'll have some fun. Oh. I'm not going to read long because it's been a long night, but I want to read a few. Woman with wings. The way out of the library isn't always clear. Victory, or so she calls herself, drives with me. We move, closing the zipper across the landscape, joining two sides of an emotion together. Up ahead at the fork, causality breaks into a side effect. We interrupt the librarian's silent monologue. It drains his face of animation, sucks the air from the room. His figure bars the exit like a bad habit. It is possible to train these associations whether you like them or not. With practice, you can predict defeat or summon the sunrise over the scene murderously. Work is pushing past resistance. It has all been written before somewhere, spilling off the inventory shelves. Sometimes you can read with the headlights on. Sometimes you can drive to moods for which no correlates exist, only curves, shaded paths in the wilderness, occasional plots of land ignored by absentee owners. The cars ahead have disappeared. Finally, the way is clear, and we have come to a way out, past the flocked walls, the manipulated seams, past the unzippered feeling, the tacit violence between its teeth, the trick with the mirrors and speed. And I'm going to go to a longer one. Let's see. Voice of no. The voice of no. No need to be contrary. I put on a face. No use for muscle. The workers stand on line for hours. No need to read. 24 hours of the shopping channel. No fire. We have the illusion of doing what we want. Is it any way to talk with your tongue pressed against glass? The TV set is barking this Sunday morning off when we acquire an instant memory and round language where the ends justify the ends. We rummage among the many unplugged connections looking for that darn fraction of a percent of the landscape you say it is possible to live in. And who will miss it when we divide up the sun and devour our young rather than give up our good seats? The postcards are brought out, and the LP is skipping. And anyway, rescue is sure to be slow. In place of a raft, we paddle ladders past the litter of drifting bodies. A negative mood. Let's keep in that theme. This is no time for nail biting. Even the stones are tired of war, though neutral on the subject of throw weight and carried malice. The audience tries to pry themselves out of the script because they want to belong to themselves, whatever that means. But now it's almost time for the news. Gabriel, just to show his muscle, is yelling in a reedy tenor about his favorite program, preempted for breaking events. And yes, the reception is sharp and palpable, even if it induces nausea, familiarity, the words recognizably impaled, those plates of gummy platitudes served in modern translation. You see, there is no end to the supply of wretch or pity pulled out of the pocket on a chain. It's read by a newsreader in an even tone. Wasn't he in the 19th century? Maybe. The atomic age was followed by the ironic age, followed by the screen age, and so help us through the simulacrum of whosoever severed ever between knowledge and obligation, love's amputation. The last thing that comes to mind as the end of summer staggers from one lacerating storm to the next, all side eyes and unconcealed contempt. Handbook of Quarrels. From what they say about you makes it say itself through you. How what they say about you makes it say itself through you. It's thought bubbles overheard, close captioned. It's in your voice, inserted like a chip in the back of your head. The king is dead and long live Elvis impersonators. They're the only ones who receive royalties now. Quoting the original tenants, and leaving empty suits to writhe on stage, booty bump and drop to feed, hungry beats ripping, harmless in a televised cage. There is no danger here anymore. They got all the signifiers they need. N-word is a household word, domesticated by suicide ideation officers who look just like you. Today, they are out looking for the color struck and the color stuck, hue by hue, dead or alive, color drained, poured back into speech. Enacts domination, becomes the vehicle through which social structure is reinstated. Speech constitutes its address at the moment of its utterance. The words puncture skin in friendly fire, and so familiar it deafens. Is the speaker the puppet or the puppeteer? Sleight of hand, an ancient forgery, conducted in a language so under the skin we think we are speaking our own thoughts. At the end of the line, is that a noose or a question mark? Here's the duet. Should you find me? I just have to find it. Yeah, sure. Should you find me, I'm the short one on the left. I'm the short one on the left, knocking brown against green hills, a fleck in the crowd, not to be blinked on or peeled coming off with the tape. Should you find me, would you have a word for me, or do I go forward on faith for a new word, a different spelling? But where would you find me? At the top of the residential grids, in the teardowns and the private cul-de-sacs, or at the bottom, in the nameless streets, pavement dwellers tapping into the futility lines for the brownout power? Where would you find me? Which kidnap do you mean, you ask? In security chambers, handcuffed, soundless zeros, maximum cancellations of the future, in the mall's maw thrall of fear-numbing, card-bearing youth, in abandoned villages, smoking ruins patrolled by Uzi-besotted soldiers. When the codes change, does the energy suck remain the same? And would I recognize my name in the voice calling from the burning bush? Would I hold my breath and hope it wasn't my name being called from the burning bush? And if it isn't me, who else will carry the tune? And if you should find me, would I have to relearn my own name, talk to the letters in the alphabet one by one, my new best friends? Would I have to invent spill over? There's got to be more days in the year. Birthdays shouldn't be rationed. We need new shoes. We need to replace perpetual war footing. And if you should find me, does that mean the pop quiz in the picture, rebus times pantomime, tariffs, pygmy? And would I have to button down and do fewer wrinkles in the forehead automatically lead to new wrinkles in the knees? And if you should find me, could I stop doing red onions, beets, radishes, peppers? Then who would restore the color to crunch? Everyone knows it's easy to hold things off with the red and its expectation, the bell and its clapper, the beets to its sugar. Should you find me? How could I miss? Who would I miss? Who would miss me? You know what? Why don't we just go to the last? The Ella Baker, yeah. We're going to go to the last. Because we've been... This is forever in progress.
So I start first.
You start. It's not in the book.
We're painting outside the lines here.
Not in the book.
And to speak to a former resident of this great neighborhood, this melody's by Charlie Parker.
James Baldwin and Ella Baker never met. Nevertheless, James Baldwin and Ella Baker meet under a night sky not long ago, long after they have died. Shooting stars track fire across a black firmament. The great bowl of sky is speckled with light. Charlie Parker on the radio tunes in and out of static. Ella Baker hums. Da 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 dum da dum da 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 dum da da dum da 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 da. Da 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 da. Is that you, Ella? Is that you humming? Does the night hold its own assorted knocks and spirals? Are there trees with speech? Rings of noise. The body and the tree hum perhaps the same key? Body and tree and sky humming in a roaring and a roaming lament? Ella. James, I never could see the lines between the stars. The Archer, the Great Bear, Hercules, the twins. Where do those lines go? Jimmy, I made the lines go where I needed them to go. As sudden as truth in plain sight. I made the lines go, as the people used to say, go where the Spirit says go. And I traveled. You traveled too, to discover the stars the same over there as here. Travel abroad to discover that no matter where you go, you are always black, truly American, gay, prophetic, diatonic, gifted, shy, incorrigible, over your rage now, into surgery and dissection. Yeah. When I got there, I had the sensation of change, unlocking motion in me without movement. The clicking keys fill blank pages, empty registers flood with bones and bones and the bones. And the bones are the scaffold for new constellations, only partially filled in. But Ella, you look drawn yourself. Are you wind or are you water? I'm dust. Meteor shower during different parts of the year. We watch the remnants of long dead suns explode again and again. And when we cross that part of the sky, the meteors fall, burning, as they plummet through atmosphere and hit the earth. Who says that what we do stops with us? Thank you.
Thank you so much to Nightboat. Thank you to all of the readers, to Simone White, to Sawako Nakayasu, Charles Bernstein, Tonya M. Foster. Thank you to Marty Ehrlich. Thank you again, Erica Hunt. There are books for sale over here. Please get yourself a copy of the book if you don't already have it. There's still food and drink to have. We can stay in the yard until about 9 p.m., and then I'll gently begin to shepherd folks to the plaza. Thank you again.
Thank you.